It's the Week 7 edition of the Coach's Corner here on RFM, and great to have you with us for another week previewing Leominster High School football with Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates. I'm Todd Robbins. Great to have you along with us as Leominster gets set to match up with the Central Mass Power in Wachusett's Mountaineers on Friday night at Hal Lane Field. We'll have more on that coming up as we progress through the next half hour. But first, Coach, we got to look back on a Week 6 loss, a 28-0 loss to Algonquin. Your record now falls to 2-4. Algonquin improves their record to 5-1. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means to both teams coming up in a little bit. But first, let's talk about the game action that was. It was a week where you went in thinking to yourself that you had a real good bead offensively on the ability to be able to run the football and be able to take the football at their defense, and that maybe you'd find some space in there with varying running backs. And it just seemed like that space never quite materialized.
No, we hit it a couple times, but not with the consistency that we were hoping for. And credit to them, they did a good job of pressuring us with the linebackers, playing up pretty tight and not giving us a lot of space to run the ball and force us to put the ball in the air. Coupled that with with field position being an issue in terms of us starting deep in our territory on multiple drives. They made it really, really tough for us, and that's a kudos to them and the job that they did and their coaches did. And we have to find a way to persevere through those moments and hit some big plays and connect and make catches and make blocks and make throws to keep the chains moving and keep teams honest. And we just didn't do enough of that this past week.
On the broadcast side of things, we're always looking for little subtle messages about things and reasons and how a team might feel. And the first message we got that came, from what we observed came right at the coin toss, when instead of deferring the option, which has become the new way of handling the coin toss, if you win, you all went out and chose to go on offense first. It certainly said something about what you felt like was the importance of either getting on the board first or having offensive success first. Talk to me a little bit about the change in plan there.
Well, we kind of looked at Algonquin the same as we look at with Shepherd Hill. They run the ball really well. They can kind of, give you some full house sets, and they want to hold on to the football. So, for us to be able to be assured of a possession there, and then being able to control whether we had a possession or not in the second half, whether we wanted an onside kick or something like that, we had the option at least to do that in the second half, if we needed a possession someplace. So. That was really kind of the thought going into it, knowing that they were going to try to run the ball a lot, take some time off the clock. We really wanted to go out and try to establish our run game. And again, it didn't go according to plan, and that's just kind of how it went.
You mentioned the field position point, and that was probably the what offset the decision to go on offense first, which is you got pinned deep on that first possession, and then from there, of course, faced the long field in front of you, and a couple of things didn't quite pan out early on that first possession, and one thing kind of seemed to lead to another. What did you see in those first couple of possessions of the football, both their first possession and your first possession, that kind of told you how this game was going to kind of dictate as it moved forward?
Well, really, at least offensively for us, the pressure that they gave us defensively with their linebackers walked up in the A gaps and B gaps sometimes, and being able to get penetration there. I think it made it tough for our offensive line to, identify the front and then be able to step down with authority to the gaps they wanted to step down to. Kind of took away some of our pulling, run game. Pulling the backside guard, front side guard. We didn't want to pull a guard with, a linebacker walked up in a gap where he's going to shoot the gap backside and make a play happen anyway. So it forced us to do some things, and really run just kind of straight power football, right? Right at them. And like I said, we popped a couple there, but not enough to consistently move the chains and the change field position. And when you start with the ball, so deep in your own fields, that obviously allows the defense to play a little bit more aggressive too. So, we didn't really put the pressure on them in terms of having field to work with. And then being more balanced offensively between run and pass. We need to do a better job of connecting when we call up passes, and we need to do a better job of blocking things up in general too. So, like I said, we've made progress since week 1. I know sometimes the guys may not feel that way, but they're working. The coaches are working hard. We play a tough schedule, and Algonquin is probably having one of the better years they've had in a while. And it's tough. The guys are hanging in there. We're just going to keep on trying to fight, and just get better every week.
at the risk of twisting this offensive knife a little bit, the one thing that I did take note of early on in the football game was the return of punter Ivan Kadua to the punting duties. You've platooned that situation a little bit, and he returned, and it became obvious he was a strength early on in the game for being able to do what he could to change field position in the football game, particularly early on when you got pinned and maybe couldn't move the ball as well out of your own end of the field. He was able to push them back to their side of the field, which gave your defense some room to work.
Yeah, no, Ivan did for a couple of weeks there. He had a wrist injury, that prevented him from, really kind of handling the ball with consistency. And Nico did a great job hanging in there. When we asked him to, Ponce even got a fake punt and ran it for a first down there too. So definitely did some yeoman's work in there, as a punter. But having Ivan back, he's got a good leg. He can hang the ball up there a little bit. And he pushed the ball down the field, and he gave us a chance to flip the field a couple times.
And that certainly does make all the difference in the world. To your defense's credit as well, they certainly were presented with some adverse opportunities throughout the game and faced long, sustained drives where there wasn't a lot of opportunity to sub because Algonquin went with kind of an Algonquin was the new fast sort of look where it was constant go, 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 go. They weren't subbing out on their side of the ball, which doesn't leave you an opportunity necessarily to sub on your side of the ball. Nothing's going to be slowed down officially. And so that means you are faced with having to move at the pace they wanted to go. It gasses people quickly, but there were certainly opportunities where your defense, after facing long sustained drives, still managed to eventually mark a line in the sand and get their offense off the field.
No, we always practice defense during the week. We practice with our backs against the goal line. This is kind of the Alamo, right? And we always kind of practice like that. We try to create those situations in practice. And it showed, and it came through a couple times in that game. The tough thing that Algonquin did is, usually when you think of hurry up, no huddle offense, you think of spread, you think of teams are throwing the ball over the place. Well, they're running it with power sets and just running the ball right at you. So it's, not only is it, tough in terms of the tempo that they're going at, but also the nature of the plays that they're calling are aggressive downhill run plays too. So they do a really good job of it. And, we needed to have fresh legs in there. Guys are getting, they're running right at us. And, the inability to sub regularly or them being able to dictate when we could sub and not sub, certainly kind of get us in some situations where, that weren't ideal, obviously. But, defense, when push came to shove there, they hung in there and they made some good stops. We had some turnovers there too. And, they played tough. Algonquin was a tough team. They just kind of kept bringing it all night long.
It's interesting that you make that point about them running it out of running the fast tempo out of a power offense. Is that in my mind during the game I saw the speed reminiscent of maybe the last 7 or 8 years with St. John's, where they want to run 3 plays a minute of game clock. They want to be running a play anywhere between every 20 and 25 seconds. They want to snap the football, but you are correct. They wanted to spread the field, and they had quarterbacks at the time that could distribute the ball in multiple means, whether it was handing the ball off, pitching the ball out, or throwing the ball vertically down the field. And in this case, it was kind of this interesting combination of taking a Shepherd Hill pound you offense and put it at the tempo of a St. John's spread. It was certainly an impressive feat to see as it moved its way forward.
Yeah, I think they had, 22. It was a really good running back for them. His last name is escaping right now. Ramos. Ramos. Yep. And then you have Hostage, a quarterback, who's a great runner as well. And you throw in a couple other backs who can go in there and spell those guys too. If you can keep fresh legs running the ball and your line's in good condition, it's a real advantage if you can pull it off.
We have talked about in the past, obviously, circumstances where you all have benefited from special teams. And they certainly, I think, early on in that football game benefited from a big special teams play that was very reminiscent of plays that you all have created from your kicking game to get a ball to check up in that 10 to 15 yard window, maybe more like 15, 20 yard window, just behind that forward line on the kickoff team. And you're able to get the ball to check up. And it seemed a little bit like he who hesitated didn't end up with the ball in that circumstance. What did you see when you went back and reviewed the play?
Well, we always tell our returners there to, if anything's over the head of the guys in front of you, then we got to make that play. So, I think, our returners weren't sure first if that was going to land before or after. Then it popped in right behind, and it was a good kick, by the kicker from Algonquin, and we just, I think it kind of threw us for a loop there. I think we kind of paused for a second, and that hesitation, cost us a possession there.
It is one of those cases where we'd like to believe that people could place the ball that well, but in a lot of ways, like I said, you guys have pulled it off a couple of times this year. Certainly they did in this case against you. It seemed like a circumstance where you couldn't have placed the ball down on the ground in any more of a perfect circumstance for the team that was coming in at the ball, just because of, as you noted, where it landed between the up men and the return men that are on that back line. And of course, where it was geographically on the field seemed like it just created this perfect storm of chaos.
Yeah, it really was a well placed kick, a really perfectly placed kick where it had to be. It caused some hesitation for the returners, and that's all that they needed to get down there and pounce on the ball.
And it kind of all leads to one end result here. And I know for you, this was probably, as an offensive minded coach, the hardest part to walk away from, which would be the first game this year where you failed to put up any points of any kind, which felt maybe a little bit like a regression toward what you had seen in this kind of spring carryover COVID season. And it seemed like you had advanced beyond that was something that maybe you had got beyond. Talk to me about that feeling and maybe the message to the team, where you reach a point where you don't score in a football game, that you felt like you had a plan that could ultimately produce points.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think our plan was good. I think our execution needed to be better, and I still think our team is making strides in the right direction. We talked before coming on the air. We play a real tough schedule, and this is probably one of the better years that Algonquin's had in a while. And kudos to them for what they did. And but I don't want our guys to lose sight of the fact that we are getting better every week. We're getting better every week. We've had to deal with some adversity in terms of again, no excuses here, but there are situations that do impact how we practice and how we play. When we have some guys that are missing, some guys that are sick, some guys have to be out or have to miss a day of practice. Those things pile up in terms of us needing consistency in our execution. So those things all kind of chip away at it, but we are making progress. We're doing things I'm confident. Our coaches, we're doing things the right way. We're teaching things the right way. And our guys aren't hanging in their heads. They're not giving up, which is true to form from what we've had. And we're going to get to where we need to be. It's just guys need to trust the process and just I know it's tough not going out there and scoring points during this game, but we can't dwell on that and feel like we're in dire straits here. We're not. We have to make sure that we keep on progressing, moving forward, and just get better at executing what we do.
When you talk about consistency, I know from a coaching standpoint, because it's a teaching standpoint, you can create all of the consistency that you want in your plan, in the steps that you want to create, in your practice plan, all the things you try to implement, same way you would as a classroom teacher as well. It's why coaching and teaching make such great parallels. And then there is a consistency of either the performance of the folks that are the students or the student athletes in this circumstance, or them feeling like something is as consistent as you as the educator want to make that feel. How does that consistency develop over time? And how do you feel about the overall consistency that you're seeing, both in the consistency you're creating, but maybe more importantly, the consistent return that you're getting in the execution on the other side?
Well, that's the disconnect right now. That's what we need to see more of. We need to see more of the consistency that we're seeing in practice, which, we are seeing. We are seeing guys getting better, running plays the right way, with a high motor. We're seeing that in practice. But there is a disconnect moving over to the game. I'm not sure if it's, if we're apprehensive or if it's, so we're talking as a coaching staff to see what we need to do to kind of combat that. Because ultimately that lies on me as a head coach and, as the coaching staff. If there's a disconnect between how we're executing and our consistency in practice and it's not carrying through in the game, then that's something that we have to look in the mirror and figure out how we can fix that. And I think it's really just going back to fundamentals too, because I think once we get in the middle of a game, sometimes you lose sight. You're more about blocking the man instead of how I'm going to block the man. So I think during this time of the year, it's not, schemes, it's not new plays, it's not things like that they're going to change the stuff. It's going back to fundamentals and making sure that we're rooting ourselves in our execution and what we've taught since day one. So that's really, I think, the key to getting more grounded and moving forward in terms of our consistency and execution on game day.
And taking next steps along the way. 28-0, a loss for Leominster to Algonquin. Blue Devils fall to 2-4. Algonquin advances to 5-1. And Coach, that is going to be the point that we're going to carry over to our next piece of this broadcast, and that is to talk a little bit about kind of what this all means in the bigger picture. And of course, from a coaching standpoint and from your team standpoint, I know it's very much a week-to-week circumstance, as it has to be, but there is a larger picture that, of course, we're all out there talking about as a media group, whether it's the print folks, whether it's the folks that are on broadcast. And of course, I made an appearance this week on the Scholastic Sports Zone on the K-Zone on Sunday, and we got into this in-depth talk, and of course, having a chance to talk to another coach, and Tom Santasania from over at Clinton. I got a chance to hear a different division's perspective over what they're dealing with and how they're viewing things. And I think, to me, the most disheartening thing that I've seen in the numbers and the way this, of course, format is progressing is that after the second week has been turned out, what we saw was a lot more of what we saw in the first week and the projections going into this third week of numbers, which is that teams that are winning football games are not seeing any benefit to winning this football game. So for as much as, of course, it hurt for you all to lose this football game, for Algonquin to have won, advance their record to 5-1, have a season that is one of their best in recent memory, to be what should be a playoff caliber football team, and that certainly seemed evident, to go and look at the standings that are being projected after 3 weeks of power rankings and to see that there is still a team in front of them with a losing record. Now, granted, this is not the difference between being in and being out. Both teams are out right now. But to see a 2-4 team in front of you when you're a 5-1 football team is awfully disheartening. And if we see it on the media end, coaches certainly see it. And you can't hide it from players as well. They're published on the internet. How do you message to a group of athletes? Because I see this eventually is going to slide up. Right now, it's taking place in 19 and 20, which are both slots that are outside the playoffs. But we're going to get to a place at some point, whether it's this year or in the near future, where that's going to be the difference between being the 16th seed and being in, and the 17th seed and being in the non-playoff bracket when things are unveiled going into that 9th week. How do you explain to your team that you come out potentially, if you will, a 5-1 football team, and or the team in front of you is 2-4 and 2-4 is in, and you're going to go play in the other tournament? How do you logic all of that out, and how do you explain that to student athletes?
Oh, that's a tough one. They're asking you to go out there and win football games. You're winning against high caliber teams, and they've Algonquin's got wins against some good football teams. Shrewsbury's no slouch. They're always having a good season. Shepherd Hill, Doherty, those teams have won games too. So to be where they're at and still be out of the playoff bracket right now is really kind of baffling to me. There's definitely a variable missing in this equation to get teams in the right order, in my personal opinion. But that's tough. But the message to the kids is that we can only control what we can control. We have to go out there and keep on winning and make it so that they have to keep on talking about it every week. That's kind of the message that from in that situation that we're doing it. Make it so it has to be a discussion every week. So they have to make something change. They have to fix it, because there's no way, the way that they're playing, they should be out of a playoff spot right now.
Point I made on the broadcast this past week, it goes like this. Basically, I have always felt like I was a proponent of the new system, the idea that it would be a statewide playoff and treated more holistically. But the caveat that I had mentioned at that time was the idea that if you were going to do that, then scheduling of the regular season, the 8 weeks, also has to be done on a more global vision, a more statewide view. You can't continue to white knuckle latch onto whether it's the local league games, which are not getting the same value in Central and Western Mass that they're getting in Eastern Mass. You can't hang on to or cling to the ideas of Thanksgiving games that are going to count if you want a statewide playoff system. There are give and take that have to happen with this system. The Thanksgiving piece, obviously Leominster and Fitchburg have found a creative solution to that problem. Others, I expect, will follow that creative solution. But then you have got to look at the rest of your schedule. How do you make a schedule when you have this league-based scheduling system where everything is done very regionally or very locally, even would be I guess, the proper way of looking at it. And yet the bigger picture, you're going to be seated statewide, and other parts of the state are treated with much more weight than where you are in your league. How do you logic that out? And of course, I guess really the question is, when does the death knell come to either a statewide system that they want to work or a local league system that people are clinging to that doesn't make any sense and is not supporting your best situation to qualify for a statewide playoff?
Again, no easy answer here at all times.
That's why I keep asking the question.
It's just like you can't have your cake and eat it too with the situation. You know, when it comes to Thanksgiving, league play, statewide playoff, you know, those are all things that require, you know, the regular season to go a certain way, a certain amount of weeks, and there's just way too many, you know, people at odds of how to do this that it's just not going to come together, at least in my, you know, view right now. So, you know, in terms of, you know, what's the situation right now, right? We're in a statewide playoff system where we need to be able to, you know, schedule games to compete against schools in other regions, you know, to give us a shot and maybe, right, not stagnate at a certain part on that power ratings, you know, like Algonquin is seeing right now too. So we have to be creative with our scheduling moving forward and looking into next year, maybe playing out East a little bit more. So that's where that, you know, that regional, those league, you know, rivalries and games that have been going on for a long time, that's where that's where we might have to take a hit. You know, it's unfortunate, but if this is the system that we're going to be in, you know, we have to make sure that we're going in, you know, and playing those teams that are not only in our division, but maybe up a division, you know, some other, you know, teams that we can, you know, compete against that are like-minded, that are going to, you know, go out and win some games after we play them too. So win or lose, we're still, you know, able to, you know, to gain some points that way too. So it's going to take a real, you know, we have to develop a strategy in the offseason here, Coach Palazzi and, you know, myself, and how we want to attack it, what teams are available, and see what we want to do scheduling wise.
You know, you make that point, and I think about two things that you've said. One, you know, when I look at the team that is ahead, in this case, it's Peabody, who is still ahead of Algonquin in the example that we're using for our discussion. And for as much as, again, I respect what league and what the situation is Peabody is playing, I just can't imagine that obviously as a 2-4 team, you're not generating a lot of your own points. That means a lot of your points are coming from the power rating of the teams that you have lost to. I just can't imagine that the value of the teams that you have lost to is more valuable than the teams that Algonquin beat in actually defeating good football teams in a different part of the state. That's the part that I think feels like some of the disconnect when you look at this system from the outside. But I want to return to the point that you were making right off the top, which is, as a coach, you see that there may be a missing component or missing something. If we were to, you know, kind of go away and let's ignore everything else and, you know, pretend that nobody else ever watches this show, what's the missing component? What's the thing, just between me and you, you know, what's that thing we should be looking for?
Well, I mean, I did like the, you know, and I don't know all of the variables that went into it, but I know that there's more depth to the strength of schedule ratings that, you know, Max Preps had done before. So I always look at Max Preps, even when I was coaching in college, of, you know, of kind of figure out where teams, you know, lie in terms of their power rating, and they were usually pretty on. So whatever formula that they had, and I think it was, you know, 4 layers deep of strength of schedule or something to that effect, which again, I don't know how feasible that is, you know, for MIAA or whatever they wanted to do here too. I know that they had messed around or talked about using the Max Preps rating system. That kind of fell through. But there needs to be, you know, another layer here, you know, to kind of vet these teams. It would be strength of schedule of their other opponents, you know, another layer deep. But I know that they do have it, so you have to win 4 games to qualify for the playoffs too. So if that person who's ahead of them and still only has 2 wins, 3 wins, that team's not going to get in the playoffs anyway, because you have to win 4 games to be eligible. So that stuff may shake out a different way. Again, it's far from perfect, and very frustrating for a lot of teams. I can see that now going back and looking and see what teams are still not in the playoff, not qualifying for playoffs right now that really should be. But we'll have to see how things shake out. Again, we're not done. It's tough for me to say it's not going to work out the way it's supposed to. So we have to kind of see how the cards fall and how everything shakes out in the end here. But to me, it feels like there's something missing in the overall, calculating of where these teams belong in the power ratings.
How we get to those final numbers. And I would say this too. I always like to bear this in mind to people that have never gone beyond the geographical borders athletically of this state. Currently, Massachusetts system is a hybrid of the historic Massachusetts system. It's got a taste of the Connecticut system in there. And then it also has a large helping of the New York State system and may get a little bit deeper. We talked about it on last week's show where New York State divides its private schools and its public schools, and they play in two different systems. But it's also important to note that New York State is a state that has never, ever, ever had Thanksgiving games, Thanksgiving rivalries. They've never had that. The state championship in New York State is played over Black Friday and the Saturday that follows Thanksgiving. So it is a very different system than people really understand when they try to project Massachusetts on into those other states. And I think that's part of what gets lost to the outside viewer when they're looking and going, well, what do other states do? Vastly different things with very different traditions or lack of traditions the way we know them. And it's hard to take all of those components and put them together and create a hybrid that can appease everybody in this process. And I do feel like that's some of what we're looking at. You all are on the other side of this coin. You are not a 2-4 team that is ahead of a 5-1 team. You're a 2-4 team right now that is down in a place that mathematically feels very difficult to reach that top 16th place now. And I think we kind of saw that, needing to be a situation where each week you needed to collect a win through that 8th week in order to put yourself in a prime spot to qualify for that 16th place. So now here you are, you're at 2-4. You obviously are building toward continuing to grow as a football program. Thanksgiving certainly feels like it is something that is your goal. And a win on Thanksgiving feels like a goal that is somewhere out there in the distance. But at this point, for your team and in your messaging, you almost start a weekly playoff beginning this week. And it's each week now you get this opportunity to play and spoil the season of somebody who is going up against you each and every week, who may have a chance to qualify, or at the very least, you're in a one-game playoff for your entire season. If you beat Wachusett on Friday night, that is a really big story for this football program and actually has got to increase how people feel about how things obviously have developed throughout the year. It would be a very big win in the 7th week, even if it doesn't matter a hill of beans as to how the rest of the playoff picture may shake out.
Yeah, we still control our own destiny here, but if playing spoiler and being able to maybe affect how another team falls in the power ratings, if that's something that that gets our guys amped up to play this game, then that's something that we're certainly gonna try to get across to them too. They have to understand the importance of each week that we play here. It's we're out here to get wins now, and guys need to go. I want them to play loose. I want them to play confident. I want them to go out there and have fun, and relish what role it is that we're in that week.
And those opportunities certainly to come, and that as we turn our attention to Week 7 action, Wachusett and Leominster, Hal Lane Field in Holden coming up on Friday night. This is a Wachusett team that, if we just say get in the Wayback Machine and hop back a few months, is going to look very, very similar to the team that you saw back in April when you two last squared off. So tell me, obviously, as you've looked at their video and preparing, obviously, to game plan for this week, what has changed, and maybe more accurately, what has matured about your opponent in Wachusett as you look at planning for this week?
Well, I think at first their quarterback, Tucker McDonald, who's a good quarterback. He's matured over a year. He's did a season. It looks like definitely sped up his mechanics, but still calm and collected in the pocket. And his overall command of the offense has improved as well too. They don't do a lot of stuff that's flashy. They don't have to do that. They have strong guys up front. They have Angelo Smith, who's running as hard as he did last year, if not harder. And they they give you, 6 or 7 plays that are kind of their core group of plays, and and they know how to work them and when to call them and when to counter off of it, and they just do a really good job of that. So I think their overall command of what they do and their understanding of their offense and where answers are when they do get slowed down is, that's going to be the biggest challenge for us. That's where I've seen the most improvement, I think, Wachusett was.
And as, of course, you look at matching up with them offensively, what did you see on the defensive side of the ball that they are doing well? Obviously, you point to their strength, and that overall strength does always translate to the defensive side of the ball. And Coach Dubzinski always seems to have something devised to try to out-tough the opposition on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, Coach Briggs, the defensive coordinator, does a good job. They run kind of a hybrid, like 3-3 stack or 3-5-3, however you want to, shake it out. And they do a good job to be multiple in that with the same personnel, being able to put a guy down the line and they could look 4 down line. So, they do present some problems of how you identify the front and who's the guy that's going to bring pressure, who's the guy that's going to cover. So we got to try to do some stuff that makes that picture clearer for our quarterbacks and for our line. So that's really what we're going to have to do. I think, they have the same type of players there. I know they have some new guys up front there too, but it's, their defensive linemen are always fast. They always come off the ball hard, and they always, try to reset the line of scrimmage, in your backfield. So that's something that we're really going to have to, match that intensity, match their motor, early, fast and often, in terms of us being on offense. Linebackers always play, really good football. They're backside linebackers, they're will linebackers. They're really good at making sure that nothing's there for a cutback or being able to make penetration from the backside. So those are challenges that, where we've stalled offensively, those have been some of the things that have happened. So we got to make sure that we have plans in place and and are able to kind of account for all that stuff, moving into the game on Friday.
As you look at obviously the different tools that you bring to the table from your football team, who is that tool that maybe this week you need to see something that tool's got to perform a little more special maybe as you kind of go into this week, and maybe they face a challenge that they need to ascend to going into this game this week?
I think collectively it's just, we have to be able to, offensive line and defensive line for that matter, we have to be able to, slow down their surge, from defense, and we have to be able to create a little bit of surge when we're on defense. I think that's, I don't think it's any one person that's going to be the answer. It's playing as a collective group, and it always starts with those guys up front. So it's a big challenge, but it's one that I think our guys can rise to, and we show people than they think we are.
It's funny you put that kind of the way that you did, because I do think there is something maybe even more to that. Of course, we can talk about, and the coach speak can be about the 11 playing together as one and that kind of thing. But I do think particularly what you identified, the line. The line is a place where I think it really is a lot about team. It is about the 3, 4, or 5 guys, whatever your scheme may be up front. They've got to work together at that point of attack. It is very much a team mentality versus maybe the second and third level where there's a little more room for individuals maybe to freelance or have other responsibilities that they're going to kind of be a little more individual in what they're doing. That line play, offensively and defensively, really does have a lot to do with a team blocking scheme or a team penetration move if you're on the defensive side of the ball.
No, I'm a firm believer that that's where the attitude of your team is made, right? It's a unique position group in all of sports where you have 5, guys that all play the same position that need to work in unison, to make something happen. And guys have to embrace that. I've been around teams where, that group has been extremely tight, and then it shows on the field, with wins. I think our guys are learning there. We've played a lot of young guys. We've rotated some guys in there too. I think our guys are really, learning the importance that their position group holds. And you're starting to see them gel a little bit better too. I really think they're excited about some of the stuff that we've done over the last couple of weeks offensively, and how, more of a tough mentality, or tougher scheme that we're running. And, I think they embrace that. So this is why I think we're on the right track in terms of what works for Leominster football. And we're going to see guys get better here as we move on the next few weeks here.
And to your point too, I feel like the high school level is that place where players on the line finally start to realize that this is not like well, you're a big kind of fat kid, we're going to put you up front to plug a hole. And I feel like in a lot of ways that's how linemen get treated in youth football. Is that it's about, well, you're a big kid, son, you're not going to be a running back, and you're certainly not going to be a wide receiver, so let me introduce you to left guard. This is the place where you need to go. And when they get to the high school level and they get to you folks, whether it's in their first year on the JV2 program, JV1, or obviously to the varsity level, it's that time where they finally realize this is a special place. This is we call the other positions skill players, but there is a skill with these players that they absolutely have got to perform.
It's the most important position group on the field. If we talk about the line, if you're talking to me, it's offensive line. If you're talking to Coach Burf, it's probably defensive line. But I think guys have to, and there's always that stigma, like, they don't get any of the glory, all that. But that's not what this is about. We're trying to come together here to do something special. And you guys have to lead the charge as the most special group that we have on the field. And you have to embrace that. And if we've got guys who say, well, I'm a defensive coach. Like, well, that's not how it works. Hey guys, like we're trying to win football games. I know you may say that, but if you're the best fit for the position, then we need you to feel like winning is more important than just where you're playing. And I think that's something that's changed over the last year or two here, where guys are embracing offensive line play. It's still a work in progress, but I think guys are seeing how important and how key that is, to our success, and wanting to go out there and perform and be a big part of that, a cog in that machine that's going to get there. I think has guys working harder and really excited to just come in there and contribute.
And that is a great place for us to put a pin in this, Coach. We'll be talking again on Friday night down on the field before we get to kickoff of Leominster and Wachusett. Hal Lane Field in Holden, 7 o'clock, the kickoff. Certainly both teams would appreciate folks coming on out, but for the folks from Leominster, if you have the opportunity, go on down the road, hop on 190 and head your way over to Holden for this matchup of Leominster and Wachusett. With a 7 o'clock kickoff, we'll have the radio coverage beginning with you on your ride to the game, beginning at 6 o'clock on Friday night on AM 1280 and 105.3 FM and WPKZstream.com, right on up to kickoff and then right through kickoff and in through the game action on the K-Zone, and with our partners at Leominster TV joining us at 10 till the top of the hour. So 6:50 for those of you joining us on the channels of Comcast, Verizon, and Leominster.tv. And that's not all. There's lots of football to come this very weekend. Special opportunity out there for the broadcast side of things here on RFM. This will be our first official announcement. We'll be covering a doubleheader coming up on Sunday, a special day of high school football being played on the tail end of the Holy Cross and Colgate Patriot League matchup that's being played on Saturday at Polar Park in the middle of the city of Worcester. We have the opportunity to go on down and cover a pair of high school football games that will be played. It's a true day-night doubleheader. It's a morning and evening affair. First, the 10:30 a.m. kickoff for St. Paul hosting Littleton. That game will begin at 10:30. We'll have a special countdown to kickoff beginning at 10 a.m. right here on Facebook.com/Media Rivalry for Rivalry Family Media audio coverage only, but we'll have that advanced audio coverage coming your way at 10 a.m. And then you stay with us for the rest of the day. Come on back at 6 o'clock at night on Sunday, where St. John's of Shrewsbury plays host to Xaverian in a Catholic League clash at Polar Park in Worcester. 6 o'clock for our countdown to kickoff here on RFM, and we'll follow you right through with the play-by-play at 6:30 from a football field inside of a baseball stadium, brand new in the city of Worcester. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it. Kate, Billy, and I are excited to be a part of a special event. And Coach, I know we talked a little bit about it before we went on the air, but these types of opportunities, these types of special events are what makes potentially a career for a student athlete, to get a chance to go somewhere, whether it's Polar Park in Worcester to say you played a high school football game on a new baseball field, or go down to play at Gillette, or play somewhere that is unique and different. It's not that it's more special than Doyle Field or Crocker Field or any of the others, Hal Lane Field and the others that are true legendary and historic fields, Walsh Field this past week in Northborough, but it is just that one little thing, that one little story where somewhere down the road, you may not go anywhere else in your football career, but you can say, you know what, you played at Polar Park. And for that opportunity, I think it makes an opportunity for a student athlete. It's a story that they will have for a lifetime. And that's why events like this are incredibly important.
For sure. Yeah. It's about making the memories and having fun. That's why we play sports, obviously to be competitive, to win, that's a big part of it. But a lot of it's to go out there with your friends and make some of these memories, do something that maybe other teams of your school have never been able to do. And, it's a really great opportunity. And, really credit the Red Sox and Polar Park for being able to accommodate that. It's, hopefully they do it, for years to come.
Yeah, no question about that. I know there had been some downers out there on social media, kind of questioning why the teams that were selected were chosen to play there. I think it's a first of many opportunities here. I don't think the way it was portrayed on social media was fair, in the sense that this was not about it being exclusive. It is about it being inclusive, and it had to start somewhere. And thus, you're the 4 teams that you will see compete coming up on Sunday, and hoping for great success, a great crowd out there, and what right now, weather-wise, is supposed to be a good day, hopefully leads to many more opportunities for years to come for all of the schools across this central Massachusetts region. Coach will, of course, keep a track on that and much, much more. No week begins without the preview right here on the Coach's Corner on RFM. For Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates, I am Todd Robbins, saying thank you so very much for joining us. And until next Monday here on the Coach's Corner, so long, everybody.